They wore the armor of Rome, bronze and iron upon their shoulders, eagle standards above their ranks. The power of empire pressed into every fold of their lives. And yet, deep within, their loyalty was not to Caesar, nor to the gods of stone and fire, but to a higher king unseen by the world. Between AD 250 and 320, soldiers of the world's greatest empire marched beneath the banner of the eagle and quietly lived for the cross. They stood at the crossroads of duty and faith, of power and conscience. This is not the tale of Rome's conquest, nor the story of battles won and lost. It is the story of conscience, carried in armor and cloaks, whispered in prisons and courts, proclaimed in choices that could not be silenced. These are the soldiers of the cross setting the stage, empire versus conscience. By the late 3rd century, Rome was tightening its grip on survival. The empire stretched across continents, Africa, Europe, Asia, an enormous machine fueled by loyalty and control. Every soldier swore the sacramentum, the sacred oath of service. Alongside it came rituals, sacrifices to the gods of empire, offerings meant to bind man to emperor and state. For most legionaries, this was routine. Duty done, life secured. But for the Christians, these demands created an impossible choice. They could not raise incense to gods they did not believe in. They could not swear ultimate loyalty to men when they had already pledged it to Christ. Edicts spread through the empire, first under Decius around AD 250, then again under Diocletian and Galerius in AD 303. And in between, stories emerged, some written in history, others carried in legend, of soldiers who stood when obedience to God clashed with the commands of men. 6 names remain with us still. 6 men in uniform, each facing a choice that echoes down the centuries: St. George, the officer, and the dragon. George of Cappadocia is remembered most vividly in legend, a rider with spear in hand, slaying a dragon before a trembling city. Yet behind the story lies a man more ordinary, and in many ways more extraordinary. George was likely a Roman officer, perhaps a tribune, serving faithfully in the ranks of the empire. He had wealth, he had position, he had every reason to remain silent when edicts demanded sacrifices to the gods. But instead, he gave away his possessions, declared himself a follower of Christ, and chose truth over advancement. The dragon in his story became more than myth. In Christian art, it symbolized fear, oppression, and empire itself, the crushing weight of power demanding submission. George's true battle was not with scales or fire, but with the command to bend his conscience. In the silence of a prison cell, he traced a cross into stone. There was no army behind him, no banners waving, and yet, in that moment, he won the first of many victories, the triumph of conscience over fear. Saint Maurice and the Theban Legion. Loyalty on trial. Maurice, commander of the Theban Legion, is remembered in one of the most striking traditions of Christian memory. The legion was sent far from home, across deserts and mountains, until it reached Gaul in the distant west. There, tradition says, they were ordered to participate in rites of empire, ceremonies they could not in good conscience join. Whatever the command, Maurice and his men stood firm. They understood discipline, they knew the cost of disobedience, and yet they would not betray their faith for the sake of survival. Their choice was not rebellion, but integrity, a refusal to wield the sword against the innocent or bow before gods they did not serve. In Aghanum, a shrine rose to remember them. Pilgrims journeyed there for centuries, finding strength in the example of men who valued conscience above command. Whether it was thousands or only a handful, the meaning has never been in doubt. Maurice and his legion remind us that obedience to empire has its limits, and that true loyalty is measured not by fear of punishment, but by fidelity to truth. Saint Sebastian, the captain who wouldn't disappear. In the capital itself lived Sebastian, an officer of the Praetorian Guard. His role placed him at the very heart of imperial power, close to the throne, surrounded by wealth, tasked with defending the emperor's life. But beneath the surface, he lived another calling. He visited prisoners, he offered encouragement to those facing trial. His words gave hope when despair threatened to crush the spirit. When his faith was discovered, he faced interrogation. Yet even then, he did not shrink into silence. He survived his first ordeal, but rather than hide or flee, Sebastian did something extraordinary. He returned, confronting injustice face to face. His story has often been painted in arrows and wounds, but the deeper truth is not about arrows. It is about his refusal to disappear. It is about a man who stood twice, even when once would have been enough to frighten most into silence. Sign Adrian of Nicomedia, the officer who switched sides. Adrian of Nicomedia began not as a witness, but as an accuser. He was an officer tasked with recording the names of Christians who stood trial. But something unexpected happened. Instead of fear, he saw composure. Instead of despair, he saw joy. Instead of trembling, he saw peace even under accusation. The sight stirred him. In a moment of decision, he set down his pen and spoke words that astonished the court. "Write my name with theirs." Gasps filled the chamber. Soldiers stepped back in shock. Adrian had walked away from privilege and authority into the company of the condemned. Sometimes the bravest march is not across battlefields, but across a courtroom floor. 5 small steps from the dais of authority to the bench of the accused. Saint Florian, protector in the north. In the northern provinces of Noricum, a soldier named Florian served as a senior officer. His post placed him among rivers, forests, and frontier towns, where danger was constant and loyalty was tested daily. When the pressure came to abandon his faith, Florian chose instead to protect. He refused to betray the vulnerable, refused to let cruelty be done under his command. Centuries later, his story lived on as he became patron of firefighters, an image of courage running toward flames, not away from them, braving danger so others might survive. The empire sought to erase him, to remove a dissenter. But instead, Florian's name became a byword for guardianship and protection. Saint Procopius of Scythopolis, the soldier in the sign. In Judea, in the city of Scythopolis, another figure entered the memory of the church, Procopius, also called Neanius. His life is told in fragments, part history, part tradition, but one theme shines clear. He was a man transformed. Once an officer of the empire, Procopius experienced a conversion that reordered his loyalties. Where once he bore the standards of Caesar, now he lifted the sign of Christ. Some traditions even speak of him carrying a cross as his banner, an image that foreshadowed the vision Constantine himself would later claim before the Milvian Bridge. His refusal to honor the idols of empire marked him forever. He chose to bear a different standard, a banner unseen by most eyes but brighter than any imperial eagle. Coda, from cells to cathedrals. Within a single decade, the tides shifted. In AD 313, the Edict of Milan was proclaimed, granting Christianity legal recognition. The faith once whispered in secret catacombs was now spoken in basilicas beneath open sky. The empire that had once demanded sacrifices to its gods now tolerated and soon began to embrace the faith of Christ. The lives of these soldiers, remembered in shrines, in icons, in the prayers of generations, carried forward a legacy the empire could not erase. George, the officer who chose truth over promotion. Maurice, the commander who would not turn his sword against the innocent. Sebastian, the captain who returned when silence would have been safer. Adrian, the officer who crossed the courtroom to stand with the condemned. Florian, the protector remembered as a guardian of the weak. Procopius, the soldier who marched under a higher sign. Their biographies braid together history and legend. Dates may blur, details may diverge, but one truth cuts through every line of memory. Conscience is its own battlefield. And in that battlefield, these men stood their ground. Their witness outlasted emperors. Their names endured when armies crumbled, and their faith became a light carried forward, from cells to cathedrals, from whispered prayers to open praise. If this story has moved you, join us in episode 2, Shields of Faith, where the Eastern Empire holds the line and a Northern king turns enforcer for the cross. Until then, hold the line.
Please subscribe and look for more documentaries at Swords and Shadows.